Hey Latinas,
I'm Nastasia.
and I'm Ariadna, y vamos a latear un poco. We're empowered Latinas who want to make you feel celebrated, inspired, and heard by providing Latina.
LaTeaNa is a weekly podcast that can be found anywhere. We are raising our voices and making an impact by diving deeper on the topics that get swept under the rug and more.
Frequently having guest Latinas who are making a powerful difference. Join us to expand this great community.
Let's pour some tea.
Hi, Latinas.
Hi Latinas!
We're so excited. We have the beautiful Nathalie Kelley here with us.
We really do. We're super excited and thrilled to have her on board here as another beautiful guest on our podcast. Just talking to her, it's so amazing. It's full of light and love, and there's so much goodies coming our way in this episode.
We have to apologize because we low-key started without you guys. We couldn't help ourselves.
Exactly.
We're so sorry. But we fixed it.
We fixed it. We're going to repeat ourselves again between the three
This
of
is
us.
what happens when you get the tres Latinas on a Zoom call. It's just
And then you just start talking, and you're like...
bochinche. Is that the word?
Yes. Sí,
Yes.
totalmente.
All the tea.
All the tea is going to be spilled all over again, I swear. So hi Nathalie, how are you?
Hi, ladies. I'm just so excited that ladies like you are out there and that I get to chat with you guys. You're the youth. You're inspiring me.
Oh, thank you. We're so happy that you're here. I can't wait for this conversation. I'm so excited already. I have jitters.
All right. So the first things we were talking about, actually, we were trying to get to know each other a little bit more, and we're asking, so like, where are you from? And like, all these sorts of like ancestor kind of sort of deals. And one of the things, we're going to start with is actually letting you guys know a little bit more of that. So for example, actually, you know what? Let's start with Nastasia in this case. Where are you from?
Joe? Oh
See,
my goodness. Well, guys, you kind of already know. My father was born and raised in Cali, Colombia. My mother is African American. She was born in Queens, New York. So she has all the sass and all the craziness that comes along with it. I am Afro-Latina. I was born in Washington State, raised all over, up and down California. Some might say that I'm a Valley girl, but we'll leave that up for interpretation. What about you, Ariadna?
I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. My father is from Ecuador. My mom is from Venezuela. Then we moved to the States, especially Miami, when I was like, I don't know, 3-4 years old. Grew up till I was 10, 11-ish, and then I moved to Spain. And in Spain, well, in Europe, better said, I moved into different places like Hungary and Czech Republic and I was gonna say Prague again. Austria, there it is. But mainly Spain. So I definitely have a huge mix of Spanish and Latin America and US, and then I just quickly moved back here. So I've always been traveling. And in Spain, when anyone asks me, I'm like all over the place, from Barcelona to Madrid to the north to the south, Santiago de Compostela to Murcia and Andalusia. So literally everywhere. And now I'm back here, currently in Massachusetts, but heading my way up to your guys' coast because that's just the next step on moving on there.
Wait, so were you an army brat too? Is that why you moved around?
No, that's only Nastasia. I moved around because I've had a lot of hardships in my life between my family members and me. So we just had to move for emergency family reasons, which I'm usually very open about, actually, because that's where my The Always Believer talks about my life story. And yeah, it was mainly my mom and me growing up together at a very young age and moving everywhere. I moved out when I was 17, and then I just continued traveling all the way through.
Wait, you were 17?
Yeah.
Ariadna, did you tell me your age before?
I don't think so. I don't know. What do you mean?
I didn't know that you moved out when you were 17.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, life was tough. Life was very, very tough, and I take matters into my own hands, and I'm like, you know what, I deserve something better, and I'm a go-getter, and I believe in something better for me, so let's start here. Let's see what happens. And that's power. I'm sitting in front of the beautiful and wonderful Nastasia and the beautiful, wonderful Nathalie Kelley. So this is where it leads to. Go after you follow your dreams.
Yeah. I really resonate with the whole being from one place and growing up somewhere else. And I think it's so interesting that we're all here together because, we really represent a big part of the Latina experience today. I was born in Peru, but then I moved to Australia when I was 2 years old. Just my mom is a single mom and was raised there, so I feel very culturally Australian. But always felt connected to my Peruvian ancestry. My father was from Argentina. He was of European descent, but because he never stuck around, I never really connected with that side of my heritage. So it was a shock when I got my DNA test back and I was 50% white.
Really?
It was like such an identity crisis because I was like, no, soy indígena, mi abuela habla quechua. And, you know, like I had just been raised with my side of the family. And when I go to see my family, we're all brown, Peruvian, indigenous. We raised on the pachamanca, which is like the Inca barbecue that you cook in the earth. So it was like a real big, like, shock to know that I'm like half a white girl. But then at the same time, I've been really owning the fact that I am really half a white girl, and that unlike a lot of Latinas, I have had the luxury of being able to pretend or show up as a white girl, not even pretend, because I never hid who I was. But, you know, because of my accent and my features, people never guess I'm Latina, especially now that I'm blonde, which was a whole nother thing we'll talk about later about identity and like beauty as Latinas, you know? And, so I've just been realizing recently, because I've been thinking about like what it means now to be kind of coming out of the closet as an indigenous Latina and as a Latina in general. And the fact that like until I did a show about Latinos, I never really cared about content for Latinos. And all of a sudden now I'm very like fired up about it. But where was I before? I realized, before I was like kind of just passing through life as a white girl and with all the privileges that came with that. We're disconnected from the struggles of our family back home, and it's really time for us here and that have left Latin America to now start showing up in solidarity for what is going on back home. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then what we were talking about when we were like, we got to hit record on this was I also was devastated. So my DNA test came also with some other shocking revelations, which was that I don't have any African heritage, and I was devastated. I thought that maybe by being born in Lima, which has a big Afro-Peruvian history, that maybe I got like a drop or two, because when we grew up, my mom taught me festejo, which is the dance that it's like a very famous and beloved national dance in Peru, and it comes from the Afro-Peruvians, and it literally means to celebrate. And it was the dance that they kind of came up with to celebrate the end of slavery. Basically, it's really tied to that. And so it's beautiful. It's a beautiful dance, and like, you know, like a lot of Afro-Latino dances, folkloric dances, is like percussion and shaking and moving, and I just really wanted that in my blood, but it's okay, it's in my soul. Even if it's not in my blood. But yeah, I'm so lucky that, because this brings me to another topic which I think we will spend a lot of time on, which is racism within Latinos and the Latino community, and people don't like to talk about it. But I'm so lucky that I was raised by my mom, who is like a reverse racist. If anything, she gives preference to people who are black or brown.
That is so uncommon in the Latinx community.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy cool, though. That's
crazy.
And I was raised to be so proud of my indigenous heritage, to the point when I went back to Peru, or when I would meet other Peruvians and they would always try to be from Lima or try to be whiter than they were, I was like, what's wrong with them? They don't have a clue. And so I'm just so lucky that was my upbringing, and I'm able to, also growing up in Australia, you know, where it's like, well, it's a very white country, but it's a very fair country, you know. I mean, no, let's not even go into that. Let's just say that the way I was brought up, it's fair for some people, but the way I was brought up, when I went back and saw the racism in Latin America, I was shocked. Like, it shocked my system, because I was not used to it, and it hurt me to see how ingrained it was. And it even comes down to, and this is no disrespect, Nastasia, but like the way that we look at me with the blonde in my hair, but the way that like we want to straighten our hairs if we're Afro-Latina, or look at me now. This is Noah Hamilton hair, so I can claim it's for a character. I went a long time never dyeing my hair because I was really like adamant, like, no, this is who I am. You know, my family, we all have dark hair. But, you know, I'm just putting my hand up and saying that I'm not above this. But like there is an element of trying to like deny our blackness or our brownness as Latinos. And this, like, even if you look at the traditional, like if you look at the years of Miss Universe contestants from all the countries, every time I'd watch Miss Universe, I'd be like, where did they find this blonde peruana?
Right?
Like, I've never seen one.
Oh my
They pick one every year for Miss Universe. And you never see one with a more traditional like Inca or African nose. You know, maybe now they're a little darker, but they've all had the nose jobs to look whiter. And I'm just saying this is a really big problem. And now I'm going to hand it over to you guys and tell me what you think about this.
No, it really is. And you guys, you know, I talk about this all the time on the podcast, but I grew up hearing the words "arregla la raza," to fix the race. You don't date someone who's darker than you. You don't procreate with someone who's darker than you. That's why you can't. Yes, that's why
from your family.
Yes, like it was such a, and I talk about this a lot because it brought up as I got older with so much PTSD. But like I was told, just say that you are Latina. Don't say that you're Black. It will be easier for you to just say you're Latino. You can pass for it. Just say it. Don't tell people that you're Black. Don't tell people that your mom is Black. Don't tell people that, you know, your brother is darker than you. Don't say these things. Don't talk about it. Growing up, even though I know that they meant to an extent like no harm with calling me this term of endearment, but growing up, my nickname was Negrita. I was the little Black girl. And I know that they meant it with all the love in their hearts, but I just couldn't help but notice that like everybody else who had a nickname, it had nothing to do with the color of their skin at all whatsoever. So like it is a very deeply rooted tree, and it's intelligent and it's intricate, and it goes with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of just full on hatred. Like it's fed through hatred and it's fed through fear. Yes, absolutely. So I grew up, and it wasn't until I think, you know, when my mom saw that it was really, really bothering me. There was only so much that she could do. She could say what she could, but it was nothing compared to the amount of the number of voices that I was hearing. Like my mother's this African-American woman, as I said, she would say, you know, I am a strong Black woman. You can be a strong Black woman too. You just have to own it. You have to claim who you are. But it was nothing compared to the millions of voices from the other side that were saying, no, don't do that. And so it was really hard. And as I got older, I realized how much self-hatred that I had, and it hurt. I mean, now that I've gotten older and education has been more accessible, I'm able to actually learn the beauty and the awesomeness and the legacy that comes with being, you know, a Black woman. But we're not taught that at a young age. In fact, arregla la raza is commonly told. So for you to say that, you know, your mother was, you know, she was teaching you the complete opposite, it just blows my mind. And I'm like, I'm so happy that that you got to experience that. Like I'm so genuinely happy.
Yeah, I'm realizing how lucky I am now that hearing all these other stories. I'm so grateful. Mama Rosa, she did one thing right. She didn't teach me Spanish.
Mama Rosa.
Yes, she forgot to teach me Spanish, and I'm having to relearn now like a 35-year-old kindergartner. But she taught me, I think, and my mom's going to hate me for saying this, I think my mom lost her virginity to an Afro-Peruano. So
she is going to kill you.
We would go to restaurants in Australia because there's a big immigrant community, and if we ever went to like some like Senegalese restaurant, oh my God, my mom would be like, "Hello." I'd be like, Mom, you're so embarrassing. Because in Australia, there are no Black people. But if we saw one, my mom would be like, hello?
She would flutter towards them.
Yes, and at one point when I went to university, she invited this refugee from, I forgot, it was a very small African country. My goodness, I can't remember his name. She had this beautiful refugee to come and stay in my room, in my home. And that she just always opened up our home, and she knew what it was like to be an immigrant. She knew what it was like to feel discriminated against, and she actively was like the opposite of that.
Oh,
So
Mama
I just want to give it up to
Rosa.
Mama Rosa, and sorry for spilling maybe her
one,
virginity story.
one of her teas.
Yeah, Ariadna, what was your experience with race growing up as a Latina?
I always say it's very different, I guess, for any kind of story that I listen to, because when I was growing up here in Miami, I mean, we're all fairly the same because, of course, we're a big Latin American community back in Miami, and I was a kid. So going forward to Spain, I've had a lot of hardships. I've had a lot of moments of like racism there. People who just, as soon as they saw me, they're like, "Oh my God, go back to your country," and like, "Oh my God, leave me alone." And yeah, exactly. So
Go
anytime
back
people,
to your country, I should tell them.
that's what I said, because I think luckily enough, much like you, my mom has taught me that like she's very much of like her roots and indigenous and all these sorts of like very spiritual kind of things. And she's always told me that like, we were here first. It's not their country. It's like just, and always very accepting to no matter who it was as well, of course. But what I always end up saying is many stories here and there, like I've received more racism within Spain. And I was talking to another good friend of mine actually, and she made this list of, she's a world traveler and whatnot. And I'm like, the top 5 countries that are racist for her, one of them was Spain. And I'm like, oh my God, I really thought for a second there I was kind of the only one, because it's like people don't believe me because we supposedly look very similar to them color-wise or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, no, there's so much, I don't even know. It anytime like I talk to this with Nastasia, like it gets really frustrated, and it like it's a hard time for words to come out properly, because we're still treated like if we were the worst ever in many different
Malditos.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say scum. I don't know if I can say scum. I feel like that's a really old word. But like seriously though, like the kind of jobs that we are able to get in those kind of countries, even if it's Europe and whatnot, it's still pretty bad, as in like a maid and as like a waitress or like stuff like that. So it's really hard to climb, and they still feel very superior. I'm not saying everyone by any means, but I am saying that as of my teenage and adult life living there, I've had moments that were really difficult, that I've been qualified for a job that I've had, like I know English, I'm bilingual, thankfully. And when my, we're trying for the same job, and just because I wasn't Spanish and they would get it, little things like that. Even though by now legally, like I am Spanish, because I decided to be, so you're being European, because being back, Venezuela is the way it is. So it's not like you're going to go back there anytime soon, of course. So once again, it's been very interesting. Much like what you and me were talking about the other day, that it's been nice and really nice awakening of like, okay, I know I have some privilege. I want to find out how and how I can help, and like all sorts, and figure out who I really am. And much like you, when you said about Argentina, I had the same thing with my father in Ecuador, because we were never really close. So I totally dismissed my Ecuadorian side all my life, and I can totally recognize that. And now it's like, oh, okay, it's still like a big part of me. Obviously, I don't know, I haven't done the test yet, like the 23andMe or Ancestry or something like that. I will soon though. And so it's I love listening to these stories in the sense of learning and seeing little moments that I have been blessed, like with you and your Mama Rosa, for example, and being able to see the best of both sides, I want to say, because I bring Spain to the table and Europe to the table a whole lot. And that's a whole, like, as you would refer to like Australia as a whole different world, Spain, of course, it is when it comes to like Latin American, and the information that gets there, because it's completely different.
I think it's so crazy how like they're so quick to deny anybody who's from South America, but South America is so quick to embrace the Spaniard ancestry. Like that just blows my mind.
The amount of times that we've been angry, the amount of times we were so angry because in Venezuela, before everything happened, obviously, so I can hear my, aunts and uncles and my mom talking about this now. There was like a Galician community, and there was like a Basque community, and there was like within, Caracas or whatever you were in Venezuela. And same goes for Argentina, the amount of Gallegos, the amount of like Spaniards that went to these places way back when Franco was still alive. And all of a sudden it's totally the opposite. And I'm like, and I know I'm not the only one. That's the thing. Like, you can just totally see it. And, you know, it's one of those things, like I said before, go back to your country or you don't belong here. And then they also have a lot of, like, when you walk in the streets, especially the big cities, there's a lot of racist slurs in general. And you're like, it's 2020. How is this still happening? And first of all, we like Nastasia just said, we welcomed you with arms wide open.
Well, that was after
here?
They killed everybody. After the genocide, we had to. What does that say about, just speaking for the Latin Americans, what does that say about our internalized white supremacy?
Exactly. Exactly.
That we like. We hate our heritage and who we are, but like, and we're aspiring to be these people that hate us. And how much we need to decolonize our identity as Latinas.
Colonization has put such a mental, it's like I said before, like it's intricate, like it's mental, it's physical, it's emotional, like it hits every single point. So it's like, by the time that you realize, oh my gosh, this is actually what truth is, it's like, but you feel so entangled. It's like, but how do I get to like the genesis of it all so I can fix it? It's still to say, even knowing what I know now, the pride that I have now, I still every other day find ways where I have to check myself. I still find ways where I have to be like, Nastasia, how are you loving your blackness today? Nastasia, how are you loving, you know, your skin today? I still have to find ways to like pluck out whatever leftover roots are there from hundreds of years of colonization and pillaging and this brainwashing that we have. It's so crazy. It's mind-boggling to me. Like sometimes it's so exhausting, even especially now in today's climate in 2020, especially 2020. It's so exhausting sometimes. And I'm like, I wonder, I'm like, is how even if I were to like pluck out every single root that's within me, what about the roots that my sister has, or that my mother has, or my father has, or anybody out there who still does not understand the concept of colorism or refuses to acknowledge it? It can be so exhausting sometimes.
There's going to have to be, I think culture and the media are going to play a big part in it. And this is why I think like my work is really important. And I am desperately trying to dye my hair back brown because even though it's such a small thing, but it's really important, the images we see in media, in terms of, sadly, it's important. It never used to be, but ever since media was invented, we have put people that we don't know up on pedestals and idealize them as, you know, ideal forms of beauty or femininity or masculinity or whatever. We're projecting onto these figures. And I have somehow landed in a place where now I get to be one of these figures. And that is good in the sense that I'm an indigenous Latina, and how powerful for Latinas to have and to be represented in that way. But then it's also a heavy responsibility, because I worry, like with my blonde hair, I'm saying that you need to try to be wider, or, you know, like I think about these things. And, you know, this is a topic that people don't like talk about a lot, but it's been really weighing on my heart. But plastic surgery and filters, and it feels like such a frivolous thing, so it doesn't get talked about academically or in the important discussions. But when it comes to identity and loving who you are, and the only images of Black or brown women you're seeing on TV are ones that have really altered their face to look more white, that is almost just as damaging as seeing not being represented at all, is being misrepresented.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing that, you know,
powerful.
Yeah. And I, you know, like I see sometimes I go down the wormhole of those Instagram accounts where you get to like, now there are programs where you can just put in your face and say what kind of surgery you want, and it will fix your face in that way.
Oh.
And
wait, what?
That's so
I know.
wrong.
So dangerous. By the way, this is also at a time when suicide among young women has never been higher. So let's correlate those facts. But just the fact that we don't see our noses anymore, you know, and we've idealized one form of a nose or one form, you know, it seems small, but
it seems
big.
small. I saw this famous TikToker from Spain, influencer, whatever you want to call them right now. And she had a nose job right now, and she was very open about it. And she was like, oh, because I feel like this nose is prettier than my nose. And then I actually had the same reaction that you did. And I'm like, who told you that? Like, why do you? She had all these pictures up. She had these, like, the typical TikTok, like, picture after picture after picture. Like, I want to have this one. They're fairly the same. And she had, like, a different kind. And I'm like, and she's young. She's, like, in her early 20s. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you change something like that? Just because
it's another yes,
look like someone else.
It's another form of violence, except now they've got us to do the violence to ourselves.
Exactly.
Do you see how dangerous this is? And so when you are only seeing a straight hair, contoured nose version of your blackness or brownness, then it is denying the beauty of your essence, of your black and brown essence.
This is something that
it's not talked about.
Exactly.
It's and also the sorry, go ahead, Ariana.
No, go ahead, and then I'll ask her.
I was just gonna say so we were talking about this with Jessica before, because I also feel like a lot of what goes on is you'll get a lot of those who are non-Black or non-LaTeaNa, you know, they would alter their bodies to look like us. Yes! And to have bigger hips and bigger butts and bigger lips, bigger breasts, everything. But it's like, but when we have that naturally, it's not considered pretty. It's only if it's on them. It's like they're okay with taking what we have. They're not okay with us having it.
Exactly. Again, colonization. This is why we need to decolonize beauty.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course. Exactly.
It's so deep. It's so deep.
One of our in general follow-up questions with all this was, because, you know, we read a lot of stuff that you've written and you said and whatnot, and that you to be unapologetically yourself. And of course that takes time and effort and love, and what you just said, kind of unlearn everything that society has told us to kind of, you know, finally be yourself. And our question is, like, what measures have you taken in order to feel that way about yourself?
A couple of things. So just sticking to beauty, I made a decision like maybe over 2 years ago that I wouldn't do anything to cosmetically alter my face for this reason. Because, and this is less about race, but just like, it's more about getting older. You know, I'm 35 now, and I've always had, like, you know, really, really strong bone structure from my mom, and like a lot of features that like naturally like people go and ask for, you know, like my dad's nose. This is the nose that is considered the standardized beautiful nose in the industry. So I've never had to do any major cosmetic surgery at all. I just, as I was older, I was feeling like, do I want to do a little bit of a little thing under my eyes, which I tried just because I was feeling like I was looking older. But by the way, when I went vegetarian, that all cleared up, and I like feel like I look better than ever. So if you want to look younger,
save that
stop
topic.
eating meat.
I do want to talk about that.
Yeah. But you know, and I'm in the industry where people like, you know, like that's nothing compared to what people do to look beautiful in this industry. But it was so against how my mom raised me. You know, even my blonde hair, my mom was like, why are you doing that? You know, like you just appreciate what you have, and and my mom has always been about internal beauty, and my mom is a very beautiful woman on the inside and out, and she would never touch her face. Like it was so hard to even get her to, like, I don't know, she just like she doesn't even get facial. She's just so natural. Okay. So it was like, you know, I was succumbing to some pressures in the industry. I'm feeling like, oh, I don't like how my eyes look in photos. Maybe I'll tweak that a little bit. And I realized, like, once you start, you don't stop. And this is when I started to tune into how damaging it was that I was looking in the mirror feeling imperfect, you know? And I was like, if I feel like I'm not good enough and I need to get something to look prettier or younger, how must everyone else feel with all this damaging content being thrown at us? And when the quote unquote prettiest women or most famous women in the world have all had in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of plastic surgery, what kind of unrealistic expectation are we setting on young women, and are we putting on a pedestal as beautiful? And then I got cast as Noah Hamilton, who is the beauty. And I was like, whoa, now the universe has given me a specific responsibility to really dive into the meaning of beauty and really unpack it for young women, because the current examples are so damaging. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm just going to authentically age. And there are some scenes where I'm looking, I'm like, woo, you can definitely see a couple of, like, you know, little creases, and I got all my smile lines, and I recognize even my programming to nitpick myself. And I'm like, if I think that, then it just kills me to think of the world that we have made for ourselves. It's such an unsafe and violent world for women. Even if you're not getting physical violence being done to you, you're heaping violent thoughts on yourself. You're being violent to yourself in the way that you talk with yourself in the mirror, and it's all violence. It's white supremacy, patriarchal violence. And if I'm susceptible, then I can just imagine how other young women are. So that's kind of the beauty side of being authentically me, is refusing anything that is like enhanced cosmetically. Like, that's not to say I don't spend a lot of money on facials and creams and do everything I can in the natural realm. But I could not alter my face, because I think as I'm getting older now, I might be one of the only ones that is going to age naturally. And people deserve to see that. And what that looks like. So we're not holding up these unattainable, irresponsible examples of beauty anymore. And we can reclaim and decolonize.
Normalize, exactly. Yes. You reminded me of a good friend of mine, Lorraine Lattice. She's 50. She's happy saying her age all the time. So she'll be 57 now in August. She's a yogi. She puts all her pictures up, and she's unapologetic herself without a doubt. And I love that. So you have to love yourself no matter what age you are. This is what 56 looks like.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a yogi, but yes, I have, like, she just, everything about it, you know? And it's exactly that we need
it's
to
important. And you're young now, so you don't have to worry about the age thing. But there's a time in your life when you might, hopefully by the time you get to my age, we've already just trashed all those dumb ideas about losing your beauty and your value as you get older. But I know when I was in my 20s, I was like, that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to be young forever. and then it did, and I was like, oh my God, now I have to deal with this. And it's intense the way society pressures us and picks at you, and and I just even noticed, like, comments on my body, or like, oh, like you're losing your butt, or blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, like, who the F are you?
Oh my God.
And I realized, like, wow, like this is just a fraction of what women experience. And like I said, it's all a part of a violent institution to make us hate ourselves because they're scared of our power.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to unpack all of that. And then the second part to being authentic, I'm going to own is, coming out as a LaTeaNa, and why I was always, because, I use my stepdad's last name, Kelley. That was the name I was raised with. It's definitely not a LaTeaNa last name. And even my real father's last name, Walger, that's like Belgian, so even if I had used that, I would not have even sounded like a LaTeaNa. But anyway, that's just showing that Latinas can come with many shapes and sizes and names. But I think I've been so embarrassed about my Spanish because I do speak like probably like third grade. Like I'm in third grade. I'm learning. I'm
That's me
taking
too.
lessons. Yeah. Okay. Good. And I think I was like, oh, I can't say I'm a Latina because then people are going to ask me to speak Spanish. And then when they hear me speak Spanish, they're going to laugh or, you know, or they're going to discredit me or my identity. And so I just felt like I was just going to like, just like, I don't know, not go there and just kind of skirt through life as a ambiguously raced person. But now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to own my janky Spanish and practice it as much as I can. And like, and I'm taking lessons now because I'm like, I need to step it up.
I love that.
Being authentic too. It's not being perfect. And
yes.
So what?
Of course.
Hablo como una gringa. What's the problem?
At least you're trying. At least you're doing it. You know what I mean? You don't stay in the corner and be like, okay, I'm never going to learn it. Like you're actually doing something.
And I'm saying that to inspire all the Latinos who were raised overseas who don't speak it. It's time for us to start like, you know, just coming together and learning and being in solidarity with the people back home. And that means learning our language.
Oh my goodness, girl, you hit so many talking points. Oh my goodness. No, I feel like that's like a really big thing here at LaTeaNa, and even just with me personally, it's like I feel like we in so many ways need to normalize not just the Latinx experience all Latinx experiences, because that is absolutely necessary, but I feel like we need to normalize all women experiences and not keep holding us to a specific set standard, and to assume that if you are a woman, this is what you need to be doing, this is how you need to be looking, this is what you need to be saying, going straight down to our vocabulary, what comes out of our mouth. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like we have and I said this before, but like I'm so glad that we, like this current generation, like we're in this place where like we want to start being the women that we wish we saw growing up, because we didn't have that.
Exactly.
And I love that.
Damn right.
Yeah. And I think it's setting the next generation up for success, because they're not going to be, walking into the world already with these, discriminatory barriers, with these frustrations of them not feeling enough. They're going to know, like, I'm going to edit that out. Hang on 1 second. My microphone's out. Take two.
You know what? Don't edit it, because this is part of the thing of just embracing the imperfections, and the mistakes.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Just owning the humanity of it.
That's exactly what it is.
I love that, actually. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to, yes. 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 Okay, Natalie. I just feel like when we normalize all of our experiences, there's no more room for discrimination. There's no more room for hatred. There's no more room for self-hate. I feel like sometimes that can be just as damaging as the opposite is the self-hatred. And what you were saying before about plastic surgeries and coloring our hair and making minor adjustments so we fit the standards that beauty is currently giving us. But growing up, and I'm just trying to remember all the times where I looked at these magazines and I was like, my butt doesn't look like this, my stomach doesn't look like this, my nose doesn't look like this, neither do my lips, my hair, my texture is like and I 100% own it, but it's like a lion's mane. Like it goes poof and out. But growing up with that, I wasn't okay with that. I constantly was like looking at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, so when I get older and I make a lot of money, I can address that, and I can address this, and I can address that. But like, it's so dangerous. And then like all these, and I'm going to say it because I'm going to be, I'm not going to be sorry. All of these advertisements that are out there for these teas that make you skinny, or these powders that are there because they want to give you the body that they think that you need to have. It's so dangerous. And because social media is so accessible, there are girls who are as young as 6 years old who have social media and they're watching this. There's a responsibility that we have to make sure that they don't feel the same way that we felt growing up.
Yeah. Yes.
It's crazy.
Because I felt the exact same way as well growing up, like you said, in the sense of like I saw these people in the magazines and be like, oh my God, I'm not that skinny. Like, and especially being skinny, because I did not own my curves when I was little. I thought that my curves were the worst thing in the world. And I had to be like flat chested and I had to be like that certain fit. And I'm literally the opposite, you know? So it definitely took me time. And like I had the exact same sentence you just said, Nastasia, which was like, whenever I get rich and famous, I'm going to have that surgery because I need to feel better about myself. And that was part of it. Not anymore, luckily. We've grown and we're starting to learn and accept ourselves even better more. But yeah.
Wow. This is such a powerful conversation, ladies. And I think that even women who are not Latinas can relate. This is just
totally.
This is just a collective issue now with the feminine, where we have internalized this hatred and this poison, which is coming from, again, the patriarchy. And they have figured out a way that to like, it's like a Trojan horse where they've kind of entered among us and they're attacking us from within, literally from within our psyches. And the words that come to me are decolonize beauty and also normalize authenticity. Because playing the beauty, I came to realize like, well, what is beauty then? You know, like people are saying like, I got cast in this role as the beauty. But you know what? When I look at Belisa Escobedo, who plays Natalie on the show,
I love her so much. That's beauty. Yes,
she is beauty. Lisa Vidal is beauty. Michelle Ventimilla is beauty. And then I was thinking, like, we're all beauties on this show, and what makes us beautiful is we all own our authenticity and our vulnerabilities and our strengths and everything. We're just authentically who we are. And that's what we've got to start telling people. And these are the kind of peoples we have got to start promoting and not supporting and following this family of women who sell fit teas and promote surgery and false standards of beauty. We've got to start boycotting that and supporting like the people, you know. That's why I think The Baker and the Beauty is such an important show, because it really normalizes so many different types of Latinas and how we show up in the world and in our different ways, you know, gay, straight, mother, unmarried, you know, like even me, Noah, as an undercover Latina. You know, and then okay, I have a funny anecdote to share from the show to show how like this poison of self-doubt and self-hatred can just affect us all. But like, you know, ever since I got older, like one of the things I'm noticing is that my little butt is disappearing. And I used to tease my mom when she got older, like, you have a flat bum. See how internalized it is? And then I was like, wait, it's happening to me. And I'm so lazy that I'm not even going to do the little donkey lifts or whatever. Like, I could not be bothered. Like, I just like, at some point, I'm just like, I got to embrace it. But as a Latina, I felt like a little insecure because that is the stereotype of a Latina, that she needs to have curves. So here you have you guys thinking about, do I need a fit tee? And then you have me thinking about, what do I do because I'm embarrassed about my little butt as a Latina?
Yes.
And I just thought like I need to own it. And so one day I said a comment that made Lisa Vidal laugh her butt off. And she's just such a joy to work with. And her laugh is like the most infectious thing in the world. And I said, this is what I said to make her laugh. I said, you know what? Some of us Latinas are just culo challenged. And she that was my quote. I'm just culo challenged. And she died. And it was just funny because it's just an example of like me just owning, like, you know, like that's just the kind of Latina I'm going to be. When you go to the Amazon, you see the old ladies there with their beautiful breasts hanging out and hanging low and their little butt, you know, just doing gravity's thing. And that's my heritage. That's who I am. So why would I try to be like my beautiful Afro-Latina sisters? That's them. You know, I come from a different heritage. My people, we just sag when we go older, you know? We don't get bigger. And that's okay. And we got to normalize it all. We got to normalize the getting bigger. We got to normalize the droopy gravity. And we just got to be okay with all of it and stop letting them poison us.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, right?
Gracias, Dios. Yes. Yes.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
There's so many things to unpack. I know that we have more questions, of course, and definitely we're going to talk a little bit more about Baker and the Beauty. But before we do, Stasia, did you have a couple more questions?
No, just a couple of tears. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
This is how we're going to title the talk. Decolonizing beauty, normalizing authenticity, and being culo challenged in a big beauty world.
We're putting that in the caption. That's exactly.
That's literally the caption.
Oh my goodness. No, this conversation is so vital. I'm so emotional. I love this conversation. On so many levels. Oh my goodness. I feel like an onion right now with so many different layers. No, but I love this conversation. I wish this type of conversation, these words were available growing up, but I'm glad that, they're available now. So
well, it's because you're emotional because this is the first time I've heard people talk about this. Maybe you guys talk about it a lot, but it's just these things are really washed over.
This is exactly what we want. This is why we started LaTeaNa. This is why we named it that way. This is why, we're talking about topics that are swept under the gosh darn rug all the time.
Under the rug,
and that's it. Like we're out, we're open, and if you see, I say it all the time, if you see my Instagram post, I'm usually there without any makeup, sweaty from working out, maybe, it doesn't matter what, but I'm like, this is me, this is who I am, take it or leave it, I love myself, period. Is that easy? Of course not, but at least we're being there unapologetically ourselves, and this is why we wanted to bring this conversation to the table. My next question, or our next question actually, is breaking barriers and showing up for our community. And I'm actually going to read off this quote that I really loved that you said, of course. Indigenous people throughout the planet continue to undoubtedly face similar injustices at the hands of systems that perpetuate the illusion of white supremacy, even in Latin American countries. These populations have been historically vulnerable to the disease and face lack of access to public health services due to centuries of colonialism, racism, and genocide. We must act now because there's no time to waste.
Can I hear the quote again? Where'd you get it? I'm like, that's good, Natalie.
You, through Instagram, my darling, I can send you your link.
Is it one of my captions? Oh, shoot. 1 second. Sorry. Okay.
It is one of your captions, and I absolutely fell in love with it.
Amazing. Read it again. I refreshed my memory.
Indigenous people throughout the planet continue to undoubtedly face similar injustices at the hands of the systems that perpetuate the illusion of white supremacy, even in Latin American countries. These populations have been historically vulnerable to disease and face lack of access to public health services due to centuries of colonialism, racism, and genocide. We must act now because there's no time to waste.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you. And that was very well read. Thank you.
I just thought a huge complex, but thank you.
No, sometimes I get really wordy. I'm editing it now. I'm like, did I need to say that? Okay. So, I always felt it was wrong when I went back to South America, having grown up in Australia, to see the plight of Indigenous people, like facing all these systemic injustices, racist injustices, like not having access to clean water and healthcare, and just being, like you said, what did you say? Malditos, just like the lowest of the low. And I always was like, this is not right. Like, my people, we built Machu Picchu, when the Incas, they were colonizers too. Okay, that's another conversation. But at least, when you were part of the Inca Empire, no one went hungry. They had very ethical systems in place to keep everybody fed and taken care of. That was part of one of the benefits of being in the empire. I'm not saying they were perfect or there was some utopia, but if they were building constructions like Machu Picchu, which still confound the engineers and archaeologists on just the complexity, then why are we now scrounging around begging for scraps and metaphorical scraps? Where's our dignity now? And I realized that, wow, this is colonialism. This is what 500 years of white supremacist colonialism has done to us. It has made us forget our birthright and our intelligence, our indigenous wisdom, and made us hate ourselves. And then on top of that, they've completely fucked up the planet and fucked up our countries, and our ancestral homelands are being mined and exploited, and we're not getting any of the money. That's going back to China and Japan and the USA. So the exploitation just continues. And so the more that I mean, it's just obvious, like this is irrefutable about, you know, what is happening. These are just facts, you know, if like we are still being colonized and exploited. And the problem is now is that people think this was so long ago, that this is just the way things are now, and we have to accept it. And the concept of original peoples is so muddied because now, like, you know, there's so many mestizos like us, and they think this is just some vague, a couple of Indians still living in the forest, and it's actually way more important than that. And it's so much more important for the, like, the issue of indigenous rights and sovereignty and protection of their lands should matter to everyone in the world, whether or not you have a drop of indigenous blood or not. And that is because, and I will keep repeating this fact until the day that I die, although hopefully in my lifetime I will see a restoration of justice, but indigenous people are currently only 3% of the world's population, but they protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. So they are the last defenders of our last wildernesses, and not just in the Amazon, up in Alaska too, in parts of Africa. You know, we have to protect the original peoples of the planet as the last defenders of our wildernesses. Once these places go, once we allow extractive industries to come in and decimate them, the last reserves of the Amazon or the Alaskan wilderness, we as a planet are just completely doomed, if we're not already doomed, you know? Like, this is our last chance. So this is really important to, like, combat the internalized racism we have, that our comfort, the things that we're attached to, like gas in our cars and plane rides, and I'm putting my hand up for all this, all my Amazon Prime deliveries. There's one probably. Just leave it at the door. Thank you. Sorry, that sounded like the devil was at my door. Let's see who that is. Okay, I think they're gone. Thank you. And, you know, we have to realize that all these comforts that we're attached to in the modern world come at a price. And guess who's paying the price? The people, indigenous peoples in these places whose lands are being extracted. So this is the reason I think why people don't tune into this very, very important issue, is because we don't want to give up our comforts, and we love our way of life, and we think that where it's owed to us. And,
we don't want to be inconvenienced. Mm-hmm.
It's an inconvenience now to think like, oh, how do we restructure the entire world, which is built on fossil fuels and extractive industries? And we think like, oh, just like we think, and this is the racist part of it. We think, oh, what does it matter if a few Indians like get their water supply polluted, you know, and don't have fish to eat, if it means we can like put jet in our yachts and, you know, go on our cruises. And, you know, like, A, that's a very selfish way to think, but it's sadly how most people do think. But B, you're not going to be saying that in even 20 years when climate change forces massive upheavals in this world and the food supply chain is no longer guaranteed. Because also, you know, like what we're doing is what's the expression? I already swore, but to poop where you live. You know, like we're like destroying our own home, you know? So what's happening in Alaska is that, you know, and in a lot of places is they're damming up the rivers, or they're like disrupting the flow of the salmon. Well, guess what? The salmon feed the orcas, feed the whales. And this is part of a vital food chain. And like, we're not going to have there's going to be no fish left. You know, we don't realize the damage we're doing because we're so short-sighted. And what I love about original peoples, this is now how I'm referring to indigenous peoples, is that they're the opposite of this white supremacist mentality, patriarchal colonial mentality of how much can I extract and how much money can I make as quick as possible because profit is my end game at the cost of 7 generations ahead of me. The indigenous people are the opposite. They're like, we are only going to do something if we can see this being beneficial for the generations ahead of us. We don't care about profit. We care about preservation and regeneration instead of exploitation. So this is why preserving indigenous peoples, not only livelihoods and homes, areas where they live, is important, but preserving their wisdom is important because we need them to decolonize us and help us to get in touch with how we can truly live regeneratively on this planet. I put my hand up for being one of these consumers, you know, and I'm not traveling as much anymore. And I'm thinking like, okay, how can I be accountable for every every time I go to the gas pump, I think about this now. I've seen the pictures of what's going on. And I'm really complicit in it. Every time I order my food, like, you know, and it gets delivered to me in some car. And, you know, the real honest truth is that we need to like just get off this program. And the vision forward, I think, is like in this transitional period to be really accountable. And I'm thinking like, okay, do I set up a way where I log every mile that I take in my car or in my plane, or like try to have like a log of my fossil fuel usage so that I can show everybody that I'm trying to decrease it and also carbon offset it. So like donate the equivalent to places that are trying to regenerate our environment. But then eventually, you know, I want to be living on our farm and practice regenerative farming and not need Amazon Prime or my Instacart, which I'm also addicted to, so I don't have to leave the house. They just deliver the groceries to my door. Like I'm an example of the problem, that I'm putting my hand up and like hopefully in my journey, just like detangling myself from this system, which is of convenience, which is very hard to let go of. Hopefully I can inspire other people, and that's why I'm getting into regenerative farming and I'm learning about the soil. And yeah, you'll see me like 10 years time, I'll be like on a farm somewhere, barely traveling. I'll be able to like zoom into all the conferences I need to, and growing my own food, and you know, like really just being accountable and not moving around so much. And yeah, doing everything that I can virtually, which is hopefully what Corona is teaching us. We don't need to be moving around everywhere so much. So that's maybe one of the silver linings that will come out of this.
Completely. I know. We're
mic drop.
We're both left speechless, of course.
Unless we figure out how to get the power away from the extractive industry lobbies and utilize the sun or some other less harmful form of power. But they don't want us to know that technology because they're so invested. There's so much profit to be made from the extractive industries. And they're now like, they're looking at mining the sea now. There's no place that's safe. They're going to mine the deep ocean, which is the last unexplored part of our earth. So that's why, honestly, I'm thinking the extraterrestrials just need to come in and tell us how to do it.
Exactly. Just come over and take over.
Just tell us, like, is there another way we can power ourselves?
Exactly.
Like, you know, power is a big one, you know, but it's also realizing that we have gone too far, and what the things that we feel like we are entitled to are innately unjust and inhumane. So now we need to start, like, it's the individual work that needs to happen. Even if we discovered some new power source, unless we fix the first problem, which is greed, and that insatiableness within us for more experience, more money, more, you know, unless more beauty, more whatever, you know, it's that discontent. And that's something that I also think is a product of colonialism, because like if you cut to the Amazon pre-colonialism, they weren't holding fashion shows and saying like, oh, the Yawanawa tribe have been wearing their beads like this lately. So let's enslave this population to make our bead thingy so we can look cool. Or these guys, you know, like they've always been fights for land or whatever. Like, you know, that kind of greed is innately human, but there's something about the colonial mentality of like instruction and enslavement and greed that is really imported and doesn't belong to us as Latinos. If we go back to our true heritage, you know, these were people that were living regeneratively. You know, they're done sonar scans of the Amazon now, and they've discovered that there are big parts of the Amazon jungle from the scanning underneath of the layers of the rainforest. They've discovered that there are huge parts that are man-made. We helped to cultivate the earth's lungs. Wow. How powerful is that? Before I knew that fact, I thought, I hate humans. I just want us to all go away so the earth can just get back on track. We've messed up our one chance, you know? And then when I heard that, I realized like, wow, that's because I only know this one way of being human, which is a degenerative human. But actually in our history of humanity, there have been societies and peoples who did manage to live not just in harmony and in balance, but in co-creation, helping improving biodiversity and not eliminating it. Like, so that is our potential. And so in my lifetime, I want to learn how to be a regenerative human, somebody who makes the earth a better place and leaves it better than when I found it. I'm not there yet.
You know, this conversation is so vital. So last night I had a dream, and I actually woke up in tears from it. But last night I had a dream that, because I as everyone does, like Mother Earth, like I consider this world to like be a woman. Like in so many ways, I like embrace this world as a woman. And so last night I had a dream that I was speaking to Mother Earth. Like I was sitting down, I was right under a tree, and I was talking to her. And so I was asking her if she was okay, because I felt like the sadness and the frustration that she was having. And it was like, in so many ways, it was Mother Earth, but it was like in the visual of my mother. But I was like, you're sad, you're upset, what's going on? Tell me how I can help. And she said, you know, what is a mother without a child? My children keep cutting the umbilical artery that I have connected with them, and they keep cutting it. They keep destroying the world, and I'm here, I'm trying to nurture you guys, but you won't let me. And I woke up and I was like, I think I need to do more on my end to make sure that I don't upset my mother. Like, and so the things that you're talking about right now, I was just like, could not come at a better time.
That's amazing. You got that direct transmission from the mother that she came to you last night. That's really powerful. Now you got to do something with it.
I do.
And there are lots of things, and I'll shout out two NGOs right now that people interested who are listening can go and look into and try to support.
Yes, please.
So the first one is Chaikuni Institute. They work out of the Amazon, and they're bringing regenerative farming in the form of permaculture back to the Amazon. Because sadly, even though the original peoples lived regeneratively on the land, 500 years of colonization have forced them off their ancestral lands, and have the wisdom and the knowledge has been lost, sadly, on how to live on the land in that way. So now Chaikuni Institute is like reteaching them, this is how you grow a regenerative farm, food forest, so you can sell your Palo Santo and even like ayahuasca, you know, which is like a commodity crop right now. Yeah, in a way that helps the earth and, you know, doesn't harm it, because all of Latin America could be one huge profitable food forest if we just started farming it properly instead, and give back the soy and the cattle and the fucking things that don't belong there, and start growing the yucca and the, you know, like all the medicinal plants and the roots and the herbs. Like, you know, we got to decolonize our farming too.
Damn right.
So, yeah. So Chaikuni Institute does that in Peru. They're amazing. CHAIKUNI for anyone who wants to look that up. If you want to donate, they're an NGO. I'll also, maybe when COVID's over, go and learn. I'm going to go and learn from them. And then the other one is called Fundación Fungi. And she's a Chilean mycologist, Juliana Furki, and she's starting, it's the first NGO based around fungus. and the power of fungus to, fungus can clean up oil spills, which is why I got interested in it. Yeah, it has the potential.
Yeah.
Yes, fungus is so powerful, and indigenous peoples had such a deep knowledge of how to use all the different fungus. If there's types that can boost your immune system, there are types that can clean up oil spills. There are types that help break down matter into decay into compost. Like there are even types that can help heal cancer. And we've only just scratched the surface. So this is a woman working in regenerative agriculture in the realm of fungus, Fundación Fungi. And yeah, she's trying to implement, fungus education back into Latin American schools. She's starting in Chile. And yeah, so there's a whole world out there when we stop caring about the dumb stuff that I don't want to say that. When we evolve the things that we find important, I'm just planting those seeds out there for any budding Latina farmers or agriculturalists who, really want to help Mother Earth. As you said, you want to make the mother happy, go back to the earth and ask her what you can do to be of service.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for that. The moment that we're done here, I'm going to go straight up and look at all of that.
I'll send you the sites and we'll put the link in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
We got to start our own. Colombia needs it. Venezuela needs it. Imagine if everyone in Venezuela could relearn how to grow their own food.
Yes, please.
There wouldn't be this crisis standing in line. So, that's going to be us. And this podcast hopefully is going to help grow the movement. And I really have the vision that to save our country, the women save our countries and our homeland. The women are going to need to step up, and agriculture is going to play a big part of it. So we better start caring and not just thinking that food is going to magically appear in the supermarket. Because let me tell you, ask people in Venezuela if you can rely on that. No,
exactly.
I have stories.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
All right.
We're definitely going to link everything down below. Nastasia, thank you so much. Of course, this was one of the reasons why when I saw that quote and I knew you had so much to say, you were so insightful. I'm like, we have to ask her, of course, because people need to know about this. And from one important topic to another that's more what we're living right now with Baker and the Beauty, of course, because I know that's something really important to the three of us, because that's also representation matters. And it leads to, once again, I remember having that conversation with you, and it's white supremacy again, and the comment section that happened a couple weeks back,
which by the way potentially was just a mistake, but I got very fired up.
But still, mistake or no mistake, it was bad. You're nope, we spoke up about it. So luckily stuff was happening.
Thank you.
We wanted to just ask you, this is your turn now, of course, over the mic again, back to you about Baker and the Beauty. About essentially the question is that, tell us more about Baker and the Beauty. What can we do to save it? What do you feel? Because I know you're very passionate about this too. And I just want to give you the mic completely.
Well, thank you. It is a show that is important to us three because we're Latinas and it represents our community. And so it's an obvious reason why we would love it. But I think it's important for more than just our community, because surprisingly a lot of the fans were non-Latinos. And that's equally important, because we don't just need the representation for us, we're trying to be represented to non-Latinos as well, so that they can have compassion for us and empathy for us. And when they go to the ballot boxes and they are choosing between candidates and maybe one wants to separate Latin families at the border and another one doesn't, they can be like, oh, but wait, they got to see us. We're good people, hardworking people, who deserve a place in our community and need respect and protection. And maybe they'll vote differently. So the implications of having a show like Baker and the Beauty on the air are really far reaching. And it was a big deal for ABC to give us that opportunity, which is why it's such a tragedy that the show was canceled, because, we won't even go into the reasons why, but, it was very hard to launch a show during COVID, competing with everything that is already out there. That there was a couple of places where the way the show was rolled out could have been improved to build an audience. But even that said, the fact that we continue to grow and finish on a season high means that, look, the show wasn't a ratings failure. It's just at this time now where things where networks and studios are really strapped. COVID has hit everybody really hard. I think we were COVID casualty, and that's why it feels like such a tragedy, because it's not like the show bombed or was a failure or wasn't good. It got universally wonderful reviews. That you see the fans, how much they love it. I've never had fan response like this, even though it's like such a small amount of people. The love is amazing, and
it's a really, really good show. Every single episode was just full of lessons and love, and the way you portrayed the characters, all of you in general, the music, the feeling, the
humor,
you spoke Spanish, It felt so good. And you reminded me, well, we talked with Jessica really quickly when she's on my blog, and she said the same thing, that her fans are not all Latin, and she was very surprised by that as well. And I had the opportunity to talk to some of them, well, we both did. And they're like, oh, no, I'm from England. No, I'm from Australia. Like, nothing to do with Latin America. And they love on my blog, for example. And then the other little thing was marketing purposes of like how, we're not marketed correctly because no one really knew about the show until like I spoke to a few of my friends. I'm like, oh my God, what is the show? I never heard of it. I'm like, how? It's on ABC.
That's so frustrating. Yeah. It's so frustrating that it felt like we weren't given a good shot. Yeah. And look, everything is very up in the air. We're in the process of shopping it out to another platform. I will remain eternally hopeful that people will see how amazing it is. You can't not love the show. Mm-hmm. I don't think the issue is that the show isn't good or isn't worthy of a place on the air. I think it might, it will come down to money and whether people want to finance a show that is not theirs. Technically, I don't know. It's very complicated, and I've had to do a lot of just. That's kind of why I went away, because I had to be prepared for all scenarios, because I've been in this industry a long time, and just because some project is amazing doesn't mean it always goes where you want it to go, sadly. And sometimes the worst, I want to be really careful, but like, look at how many shows are on their like 50th season and are so bad. Like, and I'll just say it, like The Bachelor, like what a terrible show. Sorry for anybody who watches it, but like
you're not alone in that thought.
No,
yeah,
that's
been renewed for like this whatever time, but the problem is that's what people want to watch, crap. And like look at stuff that like poisons our sense of love and identity, and like enforces ideas of separation and competition and just like nastiness, and like and then something beautiful comes along and it's very hard to make something that is beautiful but not cheesy.
I know,
and that's why I think people so like the show, because
it wasn't cheesy.
Yeah, it wasn't cheesy. And and that also makes me feel sad about the Latin community not showing up to support, and I want to believe it was because the advertising didn't reach them, but I think there's something deeper going on here. Like Grand Hotel got canceled, now we're canceled. I think Vita just got canceled. There's 60 million Latinos in America. Where are we when we're watching TV? Why do we not show up for one another in the way that the African American community does, like with Blackish or something? Why is it so hard for us to rally for one another? And I say this as someone who has also not really watched Latin programming in the past, so I'm also one part of the problem. And I don't know if it's because it hasn't been good in the past. And what I heard from people was that like they didn't want to watch shows about Latinos because they were always so stereotyped and they felt that they were never really represented. So that's why they loved Baker and the Beauty. But then why didn't more show up? So look, these are just like questions we will be I guess pondering on for a while, like a part of me feels like, oh my God, well, my character wasn't even Latin, you know, like she was supposed to be, character was written for a very specifically non-Latina person. And that's why I did it in my Australian accent, so that I could kind of play anything but Latin. But, you know, being on a Latin show for the first time has like really left an impact. And I'm trying not to be bitter with the community. Because it's like you cry so much, you cry out so much for representation and for inclusion. And then we make this beautifully packaged and presented and executed piece of art for you guys, a love letter to our culture. And you still don't show up for it. So at this point, you know, with its cancellation, it's about to be that was the last Latin show on network TV. It's gone now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the implications of when we don't show up to support one another. But I'm hopeful we'll find a new home.
Exactly.
I've got a couple more days,
Me too.
but you know, there's a heavy element to this.
There really, really is. I know I'm always about words in this particular case because that's, you know, I say I'm very angry because I do agree. Like, why don't we show up more? And I have also been the one maybe not seeing a Latinx show. I don't really know. I feel like ever since I moved to the States, I have been, because every single show that I can get my hands on, even if it's nothing that I particularly would watch because it might be made for kids, or it might be something that's not my genre per se, I still have it on, even if it's in the background, but I'm like, oh, I know that show. Oh, I know that, because like I know the ratings do count for something, obviously so. And I want to show up for them. And once again, with something like Baker and the Beauty, among many shows that are not on the networks, of course, they're on streaming networks actually, or whatnot, it went beyond the stereotypical roles once again. I'm like, you gotta show up for those no matter what. Yeah. So I completely agree. And I know that Anastasia, I mean, both of us are like, it's the same thing for this kind of topic, basically.
It scared me a little because when I first heard about it, it was so close to its air date. And I was like, why am I just now hearing about this? Why is this the first time I'm seeing this commercial? And I got so angry and I was so frustrated. I was like, is it because it's on broadcasting and it's not a streaming service? Why am I not seeing? Why is this my first time looking at this ad? It shouldn't be that way. And I felt like it's such a disservice. And it was so frustrating. I just felt it, and I was like, I'm trying not to curse. It broke my heart in so many ways, because I felt like, especially when I saw it, and at first I think one thing that got me was like, this was a 2-parent household, and it's not something that I see often, especially in Latino communities, on TV. And I was like, how could you not give this what it absolutely 1,010% deserves?
It deserves so much. It's such a well-written show. Like it's something that we are very we can tell that we're still very heartbroken, because it's not fair / right / cool. So all we're doing, once again, with LaTeaNa podcast and our community in general, is like show up for one another. Every single episode, every single post that we can, we're going to promote shows like yours and like Love Victor and Hentified and One Day at a Time and anyone else that comes our way that we know that, you know, it might not be your cup of tea particularly, but it's a Latin show. Go watch
and send them my way so that I can also promote, because I want to be a part of fixing this, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I also want to just like now I've kind of just felt out the space, realize like, wow, that we need to start diversifying the stories we're telling, you know, and go beyond even just the communities we're portraying now. Like, what about the indigenous Latinos? What about, you know, that's why Yalitza on Roma was such a revelation, you know. I forgot her last name, but you know, she's the indigenous Mexican young actress that was on Alfonso Cuarón's Roma. You know, that was the first time we were seeing a Latina who looked like her, and that can't just be, we can't just like bring her out and parade her as a one token.
Exactly, especially that as like we have that one show, we have that one person, like, excuse you, there's many.
Now I'm inspired. Now I'm inspired to just think about how we can expand our storytelling to include every and all of the Latino experiences, from the
Absolutely.
indigenous, from the people.
And then it's people like you, people who are in the industry as well, who can actually write those roles and who could, because we were saying that, you can hear that in their episode with Jessica. She was like, there's such a difference with someone who is not part of the community and writes for that part, and then when you are part of the community and you write for that part, like there's such a difference.
Yeah,
you have lived through it, and that's exactly, I think, what we need, like, to make those stories more realistic and to make those stories more like special as they are, like valued and deserved.
And if there are any budding female Latino writers out there, or even non-Latino, but I have to start using Latinx. I'm sorry. And I have a trans brother, so it's just hard because I'm now a dinosaur. So I've got to, like, any other Latinx writers out there who want to collaborate, get in touch with Ariadna or Nastasia, and they can put you in touch with me if you're legit, and like, let's get to work and let's start making this content, because I've got a lot of ideas, but like would love to start working with real writers who have lived those experiences as well.
But yeah, definitely, like what you were saying before, it's made by us, for us, and that's something that we need and that we deserve and that we're craving. So hopefully enough, through not only here, like you said, in the LaTeaNa podcast, just in general, like, we show up for each other. We're not each other's competition. We're hermanas y hermanos, we're Latinx, we're in this together. We know our fight, we know our battle, and we're ready to continue. We're ready to show up. And so that's something that we really want to make sure that it stands out among everything happening, of course, because representation matters, and showing up for your community matters, no matter if you know Spanish or not, or if you were raised in Spain, or if whatever. It's just, in general, this is who we are, and it's made for us. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. I felt like I was just swept. Have you guys ever seen Magic School Bus? I felt like I was just swept away into like this world of education. So I'm so eternally grateful for this conversation. So thank you.
This has been the highlight of not even only my day, just my week and my month. Talking to you since day one, I can definitely tell that you are just genuine, full of love, full of spark and magic, and we're so thankful that you're here with us talking about this so important, so many important matters and issues. So thank you once again for uplifting us.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you guys, because you guys are really inspirational to me. And I think back when I was in my early 20s, how much I would have loved to have had you guys as friends or just voices, and in the community. And I feel hopeful knowing that there's youth like you out there who are on the same page and are questioning things and wanting change as well, and curious and wanting to learn. And like, I'll be passing the baton to you guys, and so it's just very inspiring to me to know that you guys are out there. And then I also just feel like I'm also learning a lot from you guys too. So it's a mutual learning and respect and inspiration. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon, and let me know when this is up. I'm so excited to what we're going to title this. There were so many good topics.
I'm using that caption that you made. I'm using that one.
Oh yeah, we're using that one.
I've forgotten it already.
I forgot too, but I know that it was good.
It was good. We'll find it.
Decolonizing beauty, normalizing authenticity, and being culo challenged in a big booty Latino world.
Yes,
right.
There it is.
Love you guys.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed your tea.
We did.
Be a part of this conversation. Come join us. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, and more.
Where you can find us providing la tea y estar lateando con nuestras amigas. And remember,
we are all LaTeaNas.
LaTeaNas.